President and the administration through the Secretary of Commerce and is focused on incentivizing and protecting U.S. innovation, entrepreneurship, and creativity, and helping American workers and businesses compete and collaborate, especially in key technology areas and across demographics. As Director of the USPTO, Kathy is working to expand American innovation for and from all, including serving as the Vice Chair for the Council for Inclusive Innovation, CI2. You heard Valencia talk about that earlier, and I'm a proud member of that board, alongside Secretary of Commerce Gina Raimondo and the Council members. Prior to leading the USPTO, Kathy held top leadership positions at Winston & Strawn and Fish & Richardson. She served a wide range of clients, from individual inventors and entrepreneurs to some of our country's most well-known and successful companies. Kathy holds bachelor's and master's degrees in electrical engineering, has 5 years of an industry experience in manufacturing and design, and has deep technical expertise in a myriad of technologies, from consumer products to artificial intelligence. In her various roles, Director Vidal has received numerous accolades, innovative initiatives for creative initiatives and programs, and has been recognized as a trailblazer and a thought leader. So, again, very special person, and we're very honored to have you in our little group here today. And we are streaming this worldwide, so a few people interested to hear what you have to say today. So I think the conversation today is really, there's a lot she's got on her plate, and we could ask her questions for hours, and you read about every day there's something that she's having to decide. We're going to try to focus this more on the US IP Alliance. And so, it's interesting, we mentioned it earlier, but I'm going to mention it now in her presence because such an honor and such a big step for the US IP Alliance. We just signed an MOU. And so I want to start there, Kathy. What are your thoughts on signing an MOU with the US IP Alliance?
So is this working? Perfect. Thank you for that. And as you were reading my bio, I thought I need to change the 13,000 people to 13,000 dedicated, passionate, brilliant public servants. So if we could just have a round of applause for all the people from the USPTO who came here today. Thank you. So I love that we signed an MOU. I think you don't need one to make progress, but it sends a signal to the world that we're aligned, that I love that if you look around this room, you see people representing small companies, innovation, big companies, and that everybody is coming together through a structure like this so that we can make real positive change and make it quickly.
Excellent. Well, yeah, I like you, I don't know that you had to have one, but I think it does make the relationship more official, and it does send a message to the world. And I think it's going to be really great and important, and a great foundation for us to do many things together. So, the US IPA does a lot of things. One of the things we do is we connect. And we have connected a lot of national IP organizations who, in their own right, were doing amazing things already. But we brought people together who really, in large part, didn't know each other. And I think we're starting to see the magic get created. What are your thoughts on bringing the national IP organizations together?
I think it's brilliant. It's something that we're trying to do through CI Squared. We're even rethinking the charter to make sure that we're collaborating with everyone. And I think this is something now we can work together on, because there's so many great ideas out there. We're all trying to solve for the same thing, and making sure that we're leveraging off each other, that we're sharing ideas, is going to bring everything to fruition much more quickly.
Yeah, we're going to be better together, without a doubt. And then, another opportunity that I had noticed in talking to these national organizations was great programs, great events, great people, but having a challenge driving things local. And so, as you're aware, we're creating all these state IP alliances. Georgia, we're proud. I'd say we're about in our 20th year, even though officially we launched in 2018. What are your thoughts on these state IP alliances?
So I will have to do a shout out to Georgia, because as I was prepping for my confirmation hearing, I tried to read as much as I could, talk to as many people as I could, and Georgia kept coming up all the time as a state that was doing it right and was doing more. So congratulations, Georgia. And so now I lost the question. I was so excited.
Impact of state IP alliances on our IP in the United States of America.
So first of all, let me get back to the local. We need to go local. I agree that engaging at that level is important, and in thinking about what we can do together, we've just expanded CI Squared so that we're working with MBDA, we're working with the Small Business Association, we're working with different groups of commerce across the U.S., we're working with the Copyright Office. So I think with our reach throughout the federal government, combined with the reaches of the state, there's nothing we can't do.
Yeah, I totally agree. And, just so you know, we've coined it, Jim Malkowski came up with it, the IP network of networks. So that's what we are trying to build for you and for everybody in our country. I want to segue to, we have 3 pillars. This is how we're going at it. And the first pillar is around IP awareness and education. What are your thoughts on that as an importance to our country?
It's Joyce Ward. We are doing, first of all, it's critically important to the country, and we, through Joyce's leadership, through Valencia's leadership, we are doing so much in that regard. As to why it's important to the country, first of all, other countries are doing this. There are countries that have school-aged children doing prior art searches to learn about IP. So it's critical that we remain competitive and that we focus on educating all the way through the pipeline. And in terms of what we're doing, this year alone, just through Camp Invention, we've already educated 250,000 children. And at the end of a 1-week camp, they're asking questions like, how can I protect my merch on the internet? I mean, questions you usually hear from adults. So if they start thinking about those issues early, start thinking about innovation, get excited about it, that's really what we need to start building the future.
Yeah, that's excellent. And, again, it's amazing when you learn something young, how natural it is and how easy it is as you get older. Something else around awareness, you should be aware, another thing George is proud of is we have IP Month in October, and you're getting a chance to celebrate it with us. Our governor for 5 years in a row has proclaimed it IP Month. The state of Washington is state number 2 to do it this year. And so just know that that's something we're going to try to take nationwide with all the states, and hopefully one day it'll be a national month.
Well, and you should feel free. We should work on these things together, and we can get the Secretary of Commerce involved with the governors. I mean, whatever we can do to help align what we're doing and push it forward, just let us know. We'll use whatever platforms we have to help.
Yeah, we appreciate that. And it's amazing when you have a month that's proclaimed by your governor or by the president or what have you, how it raises awareness. It really does bring your community together. So we appreciate that. Pillar number 2. Improving the U.S. IP ecosystem collaboration, getting, as we like to call them, creators, protectors, and enablers working more efficiently and effectively together.
Again, I think it's super important because we can get out there and incentivize innovation. We can teach people how to protect innovation. But if we're not bringing that innovation to impact, if we're not connecting the dots from the infancy of innovation to actually having it benefit the country, create jobs, economic prosperity, solving world problems, we're never going to accomplish what we're trying to accomplish. So,
yeah, we're on the same page. Now, when we think about this, we think about it in a number of ways, trying to make things less costly, try to make it faster, even trying to simplify the laws because it's so hard to know if your stuff's patentable because the laws kind of complicated and kind of not consistent. So thoughts on those topics?
I could not agree more. Yes, I could not agree more with that. It's important to reach people where they are, not just geographically, but with the language and the access. And so taking those initiatives is really going to make a big impact for people who are trying to understand this. And like I said, integrating it all together is so critical because when I hear stories from independent inventors, it takes them a while to get from one stage to the next. And even our pro bono programs, which we've more than doubled down on in the last few months, they do the filing. Some of them, like Mikasa, are trying to integrate all of it, but not all of them are there yet. So I think the full package is really what we need to provide to everyone.
Yeah, that's excellent. All right, third pillar. I know this one's near and dear to your heart, diversity and inclusion.
Yes, it's inclusion. It's everybody, right? So when I speak about this, I make it clear within the USPTO and outside, it's really about everybody and making sure everybody's off the bench and into the game. So I'll just say 3 things on that quickly. The diversity and inclusion, I think you're mostly focused on is the innovators, but I think you're also focused on the people who practice before the PTO. So as you know,
and investors too.
And investors, that's perfect. So it's important because it is about getting everybody off the bench, and that's what we need as America. That we know that if we quadruple the number of inventors on patents, GDP will raise by $1 trillion. So we need to tap into everyone, and right now we're not. So I think that's critically important, and we are As you may have seen, we just did an RFC to expand who gets to participate in, before the USPTO, whether it's the PTAB, potentially creating a design patent bar, expanding the patent bar, and then we have a lot of initiatives within the USPTO and brought on Karen over at Stacy in that regard. So we are attacking this from everywhere we can and are always open to new ideas.
Yeah, that's exciting. And you should know that one of our taglines is head to hands. And we want to get all the great ideas out of people's heads, whoever has them, doesn't matter what you look like, what you believe in, where you're from, into people's hands who need them as quickly as possible.
That's fantastic.
Yep. All right, I'm going to get a little bit more towards your job. So, maybe the day-to-day part of your job, but what's the biggest surprise that you've had in your new job?
So the most interesting transition is working in a law firm. A lot of times when you get more senior, you spend a lot of time mentoring, helping, training others, and coming into the USPTO and having a whole cadre of colleagues who, brighter than me, have more experience in certain areas. I mean, it's been phenomenal. It's so I mean that to me was it's not that I didn't expect that. It was I didn't realize what it would feel like to be able to roll the ball down the hall, wherever it stops, somebody could just pick it up and run. Like it just, and I think by having such a great group, you get more out of it because you get more diverse ideas on everything we're doing. We make all decisions in a group, and at the time we make a decision, we then say, okay, does anybody dissent? And then we hear anybody who has a different idea on it. So that's been phenomenal.
That's great to hear. It's a big agency, right? You talked about the number of employees with 13,000. And what's the largest group you'd managed, and how do you look at managing a group of this size?
So I think with any leadership, first of all, I like to think of it as leadership and not management.
Yep.
And with any leadership, you have to go back to first principles on the things that really matter. So when I came in, I realized that I need to hear from the people within the organization. So after I started doing all my stakeholder meetings, I started using my lunch hour 3 times a week to meet with employees throughout the organization. So every one of the USPTO has had an opportunity to meet with me. I've met with over 1,000 of the employees directly. I've heard from them in terms of how they think we can improve the organization and how they think I could better lead the organization from their standpoint in terms of what they see. So it's just about first principles they apply, whether it's a group of 12 or 13,000.
Yeah, I think try to keep it simple. But let me ask you, speaking of leadership, do you have some principles that you follow? Other principles you could share with us?
So I always refer to books, and now I know that I'm not supposed to refer to books because I can't endorse anything. So.
But we like books, and we'd like to learn from the books you're learning from.
I will say, so let me phrase it this way. There's an author who writes about the topic of multipliers, and I'm not endorsing the book, I'm just saying that her scholastic work to me really resonated with me, which is leaders build brilliance. They don't just rely on their own and substitute their own brilliance for those around them. So when I think about leading, number one, I want to be around people who are passionate, who want to roll up their sleeves, who want to focus on the country first, and then I want to hear their ideas and do whatever I can so that they are contributing the most to the agency and to the country.
Yeah, and you're speaking my language because you see the people in this room, amazing, talented people. They're trying their best to make people's lives better. It's not going to be me or you doing it. It's going to be the wonderful people like we have in the room and watching us on live YouTube Live. So the force multiplier effect really does work if it's applied properly.
And thank you all for being here and for doing what you're doing.
Yep, thank you for saying that. Turning back to your job, can you share with us some of your top objectives?
So I want the system to work for everyone, and a lot of the focus is on the individual inventors, is on making sure that when we bring people to the table, we're supporting them, we're giving the resources that they need, that we're creating strong IP that they can rely upon down the road, and that when we're analyzing IP later, that we're analyzing it in a fair way. So I will say on that, I did want to listen to people first. When I was before Congress and when people have asked me, I made it very clear that I'm not going to come in here with my ideas based on my past. I want to hear from all the stakeholders. I want to figure out the pain points. It doesn't matter whether it affects 13 inventors or 500. If it's not working, it's not working, and we need to fix it. So now that I've been in the position for 6 months and I've heard from everyone, now is when we're going to turn to policy making. So in the past, I wanted clear rules around everything as much as possible. as we move forward, it's now going to be about policymaking and going through the rulemaking process, updating guidance, et cetera.
So from a top objectives, it sounds like one of them is going to be let's clean up the policy, the rules where we can. And is that fair to say?
That is fair to say, and it's not only within the USPTO, but obviously we provide technical comments to Congress as they work on 101, as cases percolate to the Supreme Court level on 101 and other areas. Everywhere where we can make positive change for stakeholders after hearing them and make the system work better for everyone, that's where we're going to be.
That's excellent. We talked a little bit earlier about diversity and inclusion. You shared something with me at lunch about a study that you released yesterday. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Oh, sure. So Andy Toole, our chief economist, did a study on where women patent on a county-by-county level. It's a very interesting study. I'd encourage everybody to look at it. We posted it on, I'm sure, every channel that we have. But the bottom line was we're looking to learn from data and use data to drive where we focus our time and efforts. And that study not only showed a map of where there are inventors throughout the US and where we really need to focus, but also showed some of the characteristics of what is it that leads to innovation, that leads to inventors, including education level, including being in a community that offers support, et cetera. So it's one of the many tools that we're going to use when we move forward on policy related to that.
That's great. And another topic related to this is CI2. And it's something I've had the privilege of working with Valencia and others on. And I know you're passionate about it. Can you talk a little bit maybe about the future of that program?
So the future is really expanding it to a cross-government function. As I mentioned, we've teamed with NVDA, and we actually have co-chairs, co-vice chairs now from different agencies, and then figuring out how we scale it and what all we put underneath it. So it initially started out as its own initiative, but we're working with all the stuff that Joyce is doing to make sure that we're not siloing ourselves, that we're thinking about this as an ecosystem issue, that we're partnering with as many people as possible, and that we're solving for the issue of bringing more people into the innovation ecosystem. So there's a lot coming down the pike in terms of specific initiatives. We're doing a first-time expedited examination program for under-resourced first-time inventors. We've got a number of other programs coming. Some will take more time, like trying to get innovation software into the hands of children throughout the whole country. But everything that we're doing in that regard is focused on, we want more people up to bat. It's not just an equity issue. It's a national imperative.
Yeah, that's great. So I want to come back to leadership. The times we're in, lots of anxiety, lots of pressure. Also, you've just taken on a big job and big leadership responsibility. How do you keep balance in your life? How do you keep healthy?
So first of all, I'm told I'm not allowed to say I have balance in my life. My coworkers made that clear that I'm not allowed to say that. So it's a couple things. One, I do what gives me energy. So it's actually much easier to have balance when you wake up every day and think, what can I cram into this day to make a difference? And from my perspective, that keeps me motivated. It keeps me high energy all day long. And the work is easier to do. So I don't feel like, sometimes the travel gets to be a lot. Sometimes I need downtime. I'm an introvert, so sometimes I need my quiet time. My team knows that. They don't invite me to dinner if we're traveling. They know I wake up super early, like 3 or 4 in the morning, so by the time it hits dinner time, they know she probably just needs to go have her hour of rest before she hits the sack.
Yeah, well, everybody's got their special tricks, and
know yourself.
Know yourself, and it's amazing how many of the big events, IP events, we're seeing around the country, and you're making to most, if not almost all of them, and yet you also read every day, and it seems like you're ruling on something every day. I mean, you are working hard, and somehow, you've got your tricks, and they're working for you. That's great. I want to talk about the U.S. as a role model for the world, and the U.S. IPA. We're trying to be a role model for other IP alliances regionally and nationally in other countries. What are your thoughts about the U.S. being an IP role model for the world?
So again, I think that's critically important because if we're not, somebody else will be. And if you look at the way we look at intellectual property, on the fact that it has to be strong, the fact that it has to be enforceable, accessible, we need that to happen everywhere. Number one, because it's important to our stakeholders. It's important to Americans that they can go and enforce their IP in other countries. And number two, like I said, if we don't do it, somebody is going to swoop in. Lots of countries are going in and trying to do capacity building in other countries so that they think more like them. So it's kind of a little bit of a race in that regard, but it's critically important. And through our IP attaché program and through other programs we have, we're doing a lot of work. We do a an examiner exchange. We do training across the globe. So critically important to a lot of what we're doing.
Yeah, I think that's right on. Can you talk a little bit about the IP Attaché program? I've learned a lot about that in the last couple of years. I think it'll surprise a lot of people.
It's phenomenal. And the one question I asked, one of the bazillion questions I asked when I got in was, should we expand it, and if so, where? Let's start thinking about it now so we can make that happen. And we've heard from stakeholders on that. So I just got back from Southeast Asia and really had the personal experience with the program, which is, this is really the person in the geographic region that everybody knows. Every time I stepped into a room, it's the IP attaché that they knew. They're the person that works with embassies, they work with USAID, they work on the ground, not only to create these alliances that we're talking about and make sure they're supporting and capacity building within the area. They're working on drafting laws for individual countries, and there's so much work that they do. And then on top of that, they're there for US stakeholders. So oftentimes when I have stakeholder meetings, that's one of the main things they say. Thank you for, and they list the name of the IP attaché and said, I had an issue in India, and then they would tell me exactly what happened. So it's a phenomenal program. Like I said, if you know of an area where you think we need more support, let us know, because we're accomplishing so much more having boots on the ground across the globe.
Yeah, no, it's great, and if you have the budget, I would encourage you to expand it, just because it's awesome. I mean, it is so important. It really does position the U.S. with all the different countries around the world in a good way, and it connects us with the world, which is good for everybody, all human beings. So that's nice to hear. Speaking of the world and the impact we can have when we do that, we all know intellectual property is important. And we all know there's a lot of challenges ahead. Can you just talk a little bit from your perspective, like the criticalness of what your job is, what we're trying to do? This is like the future of civilization, I feel like, is riding on this.
So that's very accurate. And what I would say is the strong IP system, and we saw this with COVID, it's necessary to incentivize the investment, to incentivize people to spend the time to do the research and development to solve world problems. So that in and of itself is critical, that if we don't have a strong IP system across the globe, we are not going to get there. I know that. Everybody I talk to in the administration knows that. It's critically important. And so, when you think about the role IP plays, it's the whole ecosystem, right? It's not just the ability to protect the IP, it's the ability to curb any abuses of that, because that's just a tax on society. And even worse, it keeps some of the smaller inventors out. It's the ability to make sure that the IP is enforceable in a realistic way. Just having the ability to enforce is not enough if you don't have the resources, if you can't make it happen. So I would just say, obviously I'm here because I believe this is critically important to our country, and any platform I get to say that on, I will.
Yep. Well, you're preaching to the choir, singing our songs, so thank you. I want to get back to you personally, and you've got a really important job, and we talked earlier, it wasn't something necessarily you were shooting for, in your career, but you obviously prepared for it. With leadership, can you just share a little bit what people can maybe be thinking about as they're preparing to lead and be prepared for these opportunities, whether it's director of the USPTO or leading something else, just any insights into that?
I would say there's one thing that I didn't think about along the way that I would encourage people to think about, and that's, they always say don't burn bridges, etc. And if you get out there and get beyond your skis and you don't really have, I would say focus on integrity. I think everything that I've done in my life, I want to be, that's been my guiding star, is I want people to trust what I say. As a litigator, I need to know that when I said something in court, the judges know I mean it, I've got the evidence to back it up, it's the right answer. I'm not going to try and accomplish something that I don't have the evidence for. I would admit that. I don't have evidence on this, but I think these other factors are compelling. So I applied that everywhere, and I think at the end of the day, when I thought about it, I thought, well, that, at the end of the day, in order to my benefit, right? There wasn't anybody out there who could a strong set of morals. I think that's helpful. A strong set of morals. I think that's helpful.
Yeah, well, it's not that complicated. Just be honest all the time.
Right, and then be fair and measured, right? So I also never got out there and I never attacked people. I never did things in a way. Certainly in briefings, if there was evidence to support something, I'm not afraid of being strong with my language, but only when it is justified. And so that's been my path.
Yeah, so treat people properly. That's a good tip. What about you touched on teams earlier. What's your kind of mindset just on teams, having strong teams and healthy teams?
I just think it's so important because no matter how smart you are, you don't know everything, and you need to be challenged. So having a strong team that is, and letting them know that you want to be challenged. That's why I always, in the beginning, I started inviting dissenting views. Now they just come out of the woodwork. So it's not, now we've set a trajectory where people know that if they don't think that something I suggest is the right solution, they should challenge me on that. And they also know that I'm throwing things out there so we consider everything. And I used to in the beginning have to say, I'm just throwing this out there. I'm not saying this is what I'm going to do just because I don't want to scare them. And now they know. We need to think about all the solutions to get to the right one. And some of the solutions are going to be bad ones. And that's good because we've thought about it and we intentionally ruled it out. We didn't miss it. So having a team that you can collaborate with that has the energy and passion to get to the right answer, I mean, I couldn't do my job without it, and it's made me rethink what teamwork means.
Right. Well, it's so important to what we're about here because we know it's important what our journey is, and we have an idea of where we're headed, but there's so many things we don't know how to do yet, and we need to empower people to and give them comfort and confidence to share their ideas and to collaborate and because of that approach.
And not being afraid. We're looking forward. We're never looking backwards. So I think that's also really important because then
figure out the light bulb, and that's, I don't think the word failure is even the right word. The only way you learn is by challenging yourself and falling down a little bit. In a fast 30-minute conversation. Kathy, can't thank you enough for joining us. We can't thank you enough for your support, and we're excited so much to work with you and your team going forward. I think there's amazing things we're going to accomplish. Forward to doing it all together.
And I look forward to working with all of you. So, Eddie, thank you for being here. I'm excited with your energy that you're focused around these types of issues. I will say I do need to run to my next meeting because it is a very busy day. So if I don't stick around, it's not because I wouldn't love to. But thank you all.
Yeah, Kathy, thank you very much.